Greetings, everybody, and welcome to another Richard's Rock Rambles here on this very windy, early February morning in Cape Town. Yeah, the seasons are slowly changing. It's getting darker in the mornings now. From about 6 o'clock, it's still pretty dark, whereas a few weeks back it was quite light. So, yeah, we're going into the summer's coming to an end. But anyway, that's enough of the weather forecast. Let's get on to stuff which is a lot more interesting. So today's album, which is 50 years old, is from a Dutch band. And I'm sure most of you have heard some of this band's stuff. Golden Earring. They were going for many, many years. Sadly, they had to call it a day recently with the illness of the guitarist, George Kooijmans. I think he had dementia. He couldn't even hold his guitar anymore. And you know, very much like Zeppelin, they were like a family. And Barry Hay, the lead vocalist, said that because George couldn't play anymore, they were going to call it a day. They weren't going to try and replace him with anybody else because he was irreplaceable, both in the vocal department and in the guitar. Exceptional guitarist, highly underrated as far as I'm concerned. And hats off to them. You know, you don't want to become your own tribute band and have all sorts of people in your band that were never there in the first place, which does actually happen quite a bit these days. You know, guys want to try and milk it till the nth degree. But in any case, that's a discussion for another day. So yes, we're talking about the album Moontan from Golden Earring. These guys started in the mid-60s. First album came out late 60s, I think. Quite different in the early parts of the career, psychedelic rock, I suppose you'd call them. Then they went to hard rock. They could do prog rock. They could do commercial rock. These guys were quite talented, and whoever was in the band were really great. But the main lineup of this band stuck together right up until the end, at least for about 30 of their 50 years, or maybe even longer. So this album was released in July of 1973. So who's in the band? Barry Hay on lead vocals, flute, saxophone, and backing vocals, and all sorts of sound effects on the album. So he was quite a versatile guy. Then you had George Kooijmans, who I mentioned just now, on electric and acoustic guitars, lead and backing vocals. His lead vocals were slightly higher than Barry Hay's. He had the higher register. Great singer as well. Then there was a guy by the name of Rinus Gerritsen on bass, mini Moog synthesizer, piano, organ, and accordion. He's also quite a versatile guy. They didn't have a particular keyboardist. He took that part, and I think he also used bass pedals sometimes, like Geddy Lee from Rush used to do. And then finally on drums and percussion, Caesar Zuiderwijk, lovely Dutch name that, on drums and percussion. So that was the band that stuck together for many years. They did add on occasionally a second guitarist for certain albums, but that was the core of the band right up until the end which I think happened last year before they called it a day. I think there's a really great live DVD called Live at the Ziggo, which is a place in Holland where they played quite often. And that was sort of their farewell, or would be their farewell concert, because at that stage they weren't sure if George was going to be able to carry on or not. He was still playing all right there, but I think he went downhill pretty quickly after that. So, right, the album, Moontan. Now, I've got to tell you something about this album cover. In this country, South Africa, their censors were horrified by this cover. You know, how can you have a woman looking like that on the cover? So I'm not sure if they used to put stars on the woman, but it was censored in some other way. Yes, that caused outrage back in 1973. I don't think it would even get a passing glance today. But anyway, that was the 70s. So there's the full picture of her in all her glory with her ostrich feathers. Not the most alluring woman, I must be honest. But anyway, it caused a few ruffled feathers. And on the inside, this also probably caused some consternation. There's a naked man. I mean, who's naked? You never see naked people. Everybody's born with clothes, surely. Yeah, anyway. So, strange photograph that. I'm not sure what that's supposed to depict. Astronaut Moontan, perhaps. Who knows? And that's the name of the... So there's not much information on this album. There's not even a who plays what on here or where it was recorded or anything. Very basic stuff, but I think this was a local release. Or is this an import? This is actually an import. So, and I'm not sure if this has been given the, let's put it the right way up, if this has been given the deluxe treatment yet. I do have a lot of CDs of theirs that were released on a particular label, but there were no bonus tracks. But I think they were remastered. So this is the CD version that I have that I was just chatting about. And this was released by a company called Red Bullet. So there's only 6 tracks on here, but I know that the tracks were changed around. Some were left out on the original vinyl, or there was a UK and a US release which happened back in the day as well. Produced by Golden Earring, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they don't even say who plays anything on here either. And if I look inside, it's pretty much the same as the vinyl. There we go. So, the tracks, the all-important music on the album. What do we have here? Starts off with Candy's Going Bad, which is almost like a throwback to rock and roll, like the 50s. Very much in that vibe. Quite a lengthy track, 6 minutes. In fact, there's some really long songs on here. Then it goes into my favorite track from this album, Are You Receiving Me? With some brilliant guitar work from George Kooijmans and Barry Hay on the sax. And it almost has like a proggy feel to it midway through. I mean, there's still a lot of melody and what have you. These guys could write really good songs with hooks that would stick in your head. But Are You Receiving Me? It's got all these different parts to it, so it makes it so interesting. That's why it always amuses me that people think, Radar Love did nothing else except this album and that one hit. They had so many great albums in the 70s. Switch, Together, 7 Tears. Yeah, so many. And if you go into the 80s, there was that song Twilight Zone, which was a big hit for them. And right up until the end, they were touring constantly until George Kooijmans got ill. But anyway, back to Moontan. So that was the second track, Are You Receiving Me? Susie Lunacy, in brackets Mental Rock. That's also like a rock and roll feel to it. There's a couple of tracks in here that have got that sort of retro feel. Great drumming from Caesar Zuiderwijk. Excellent drummer. I mean, if you watch any of the DVDs or the live stuff, or you listen to the live album that came out in the 70s, he was a beast on the drums. And then, of course, we get to Radar Love, the big hit off this album, and then the song that kind of made this band, made them huge. Even in America, people picked up on this song. And I remember many years ago going to the local disco and dancing to Radar Love. Yeah, I couldn't afford the fancy clubs. I used to go to the local discos, and everybody would get down and boogie to Radar Love with that great bass intro from, what was his name? Rinus Gerritsen. And then the drumming would come in from Caesar Zuiderwijk, and then right at the end there was that sort of break, and then we'd come back into the main part of the track. Excellent stuff. So that was Radar Love, 6 minutes. And then Just Like Vince Taylor, another great track from the album. That was 4 minutes. That was probably the shortest track. Or no, Susie Lunacy was the shortest. And then another freaky track with prog leanings and excellent guitar work, and just, yeah, a great track, The Vanilla Queen, which would also become a live favorite with the fans, and one which they had to play. So all in all, this was a great album, but it's not all that they did. Excuse me, I just need to have a sip of my coffee. It's very early here in the morning, and without this, I don't function in the day. It's a little early for my usual glass of wine, and it's 2 chilies for water. Cheers, Adam. Right, back to the album. Well, that's pretty much it, really. Moontan. If you don't have this yet and you're a Golden Earring collector, then you are certainly missing out. I'm sure you must have it. If you're new to Golden Earring and you want to jump in with an album that's got not one bad track on it, Moontan's the one for you. Then perhaps Together, 7 Tears. Those were all around the same time in the early to mid-70s. And yeah, check them out. Very sad that they're not together anymore, not recording, not touring. They were one of those bands that you thought would just go on forever. But, time catches up with everybody and illnesses and what have you. I guess their sell-by date came around and that was that. There we go, guys. Have yourselves a great week. Take it easy. If you haven't done so yet, please, down below, subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. Any comments? More than welcome. Always interested to hear from you guys. Any suggestions as well? Bands that are 50 years old or anything else that you'd like me to feature? If I have it, I will do it. Take it easy, and I'll catch you soon. Cheers.